So I'm going to ask the question a few ways and then ask some of you to engage. One way somebody submitted the question is, what should Congress do to hold people accountable for the abuses of the Bush years? Do you support naming a special prosecutor to determine if Bush administration officials committed unlawful acts? And one of the things that is actually happening now is that there is some thought within Congress, within the Democrats, to have some kind of a national commission to investigate wrongdoing. And again, this is an issue where there is great division among the liberal wing of the party in particular, and Democrats in general, Democratic leaders in Congress and their members. So, Mr. Quigley, take the first crack at this question.
I tend to favor the administration's thought of moving forward for a couple reasons. First, during any wartime, a new administration could wreak havoc on previous administrations for just a degree of vindictiveness, and you have to be very mindful of that. And on the other hand, if something is obvious, as we have seen in some instances, those can be investigated if they are as notorious as they seem. I mean, none of these issues are easy, and if anyone has a minute here in which they can solve those, then
so am I not clear? Is that a yes or no and a look back or not?
I think you move forward.
That's a no.
Overall, yes.
Okay, Mr. Whalen, yes or no, look back, and then tell me why. All in a minute or less, please.
Generally, no, unless there's some specific allegation, then it should be investigated. But I fear that we would criminalize the political process, which is very dangerous, and it would continue going on, and that Congress would turn into something like this, which is basically not going to help us going forward. Basically, the president has serious foreign policy problems in Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, North Korea, and basically that's where we need to be focusing. We're going to need Republican support on all those kinds of issues, and so I think that it would serve our democracy very poorly if we went fishing for criminal charges when there were not already serious allegations surfacing that could be investigated specifically.
Sir, Ms. Feigenholtz, yes or no? And then tell me why. A look back or not?
You know, I think that there's an opportunity to very carefully look at some elements of what's been going on since the war in Iraq, frankly. And I think a lot of it has to do with framing an argument for the future. I think if we don't look and embrace the history and take a real hard look at what we've done in this war, and I was not a proponent of the war, that we are vulnerable to it happening again.
You know, since this is a question that I sense from the audience is important to everybody, I do want to get then everybody on record. And then we'll go from Mr. Annunzio to my left for those who haven't answered. So first, so people can understand what you're saying, you're for some kind of a look back or not, yes or no, and then briefly tell why. And for those of you who haven't spoken, say your name first as you just go down the line.
Hi, this is Frank Annunzio, and quite honestly, I truly believe we should look forward, but the atrocities of some of the decisions made by the previous administration has already garnered support from the United Nations on possibly war crimes. I mean, do you really believe that President Obama signed to close Guantanamo Bay as one of the first things he did in office for no reason at all? War crimes, I believe, have been committed, and quite honestly, I think that the world will be pushing this as soon as they have the opportunity to be heard on some of the people who made the decisions in the previous administration.
Paul Breyer, we do need to identify where we went wrong, especially in the area of civil rights. We need to look at that, identify it, but we do need to move forward. This is a time for us to unite and to repair our world image, not to destroy it.
This is Jan Donatelli. There is one problem with waiting for the World Court to possibly investigate war crimes. The United States, to this date, still does not acknowledge or agree to participate. So that is unfortunately not an option. I strongly believe, as a former military member, I strongly believe that it is quite possible that war crimes have been committed. I strongly believe we need a national commission to investigate. Now, I do respect President Obama's desire for not to have a witch hunt. We don't want to have another Ken Starr ad nauseum, go in forever, just destroy our country moment. But when we have had members of this administration possibly advocating whether waterboarding is or is not torture, we need to investigate that. We have, I'm almost done. We have violated the Geneva Convention in our treatment of enemy combatants. We have created an illegal situation in Guantanamo Bay, and that violates the principles we stand on.
It's time.
This is Victor Forge. I think we need to look back, because if we don't look back, we won't be able to move forward. And looking back is important. I'm not an attorney. There are several attorneys here in the room, and they can comment on this, but I don't think the statute of limitations is run. And we're a country of laws. So if people have broken the law, they need to be held accountable. Now that doesn't mean that we should use this as a tool to bludgeon the Republican Party to death. They've done a good job of that themselves. But we should follow the law. The law, we're a country of laws. The law is important. We need to follow those laws in order to keep civil society civil and to prevent the things that happened during the Bush years from happening again.
Thank you. This is John Fritchie. Ladies and gentlemen, if we want people around the world to believe that we believe in change, we have to show them that change begins at home. The Bush administration made mistakes. The Bush administration needs to be held accountable for those mistakes. This is not a Democratic issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is a moral issue of what's just and right. There is no statute of limitations on doing things wrong. We have made mistakes along the way. We need to be held accountable for those mistakes in order to have the confidence of the rest of the world community. Unless we do that, no matter how we look forward, we'll not be allowed to move forward by the rest of the world. Thank you.
Every instinct I have in me as a lawyer tells me not to prejudge this issue, but every instinct of me as a citizen tells me that this was a stupid and murderous war, and that there were war crimes committed, and there is enough evidence out there to justify an inquiry. I would suggest the following: that first, the United States adopt the International Criminal Court Treaty. President Clinton signed it. And then, pursuant to that treaty, we have an obligation to set up a system to assess whether war crimes were committed in this country. I think something like the Church Committee could be the starting point for an investigation. The Church Committee was set up in the 70s for CIA abuse. Something similar could be set up now to create a record to let us determine what next steps we should take. I'm not ready to say what those are, but I am ready to say we should adopt the treaty, get the committee in place, start creating a record. And finally, in the meantime, I would advise former members of the Bush administration not to travel to foreign countries.
This is Carlos Monteagudo. I think the best example I can think of that I would use as a model for moving forward is the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. A gentleman that speaks very eloquently on this is John Paul Lederach. There were terrible things that happened in this war. We need to have some truth be told. We can't just hide from what happened. At the same time, there has to be a balance between telling the truth and reconciling ourselves moving forward. We can't move forward without some truth, but we can't reconcile. We can't move forward without having some truth being spoken. But we can't speak the truth unless we are moving forward. It's a dual-edged thing. So I am in favor of some looking back, but not in a criminal way. We need to move forward. There needs to be bipartisan agreements
It is time.
moving forward on many issues, and we have to stay together as a body.
I think we need to learn from our mistakes. As we do as parents and small business owners and everything. We look and we learn back from our mistakes, and I think that as a representative of Congress, we need to look back and see where we went wrong, and we need to move forward once we find out where we went.